Hi, everyone. I think we're on the air. We have success. I am Cami Garcia. Welcome to Love Notes. We have Nicola Yoon, Marissa Meyer, Jennifer Niven, and I think Leah Johnson is having some technical difficulties, but she hopefully will also be joining us. I am best known as the shorter half of Beautiful Creatures. I am also the author of the Dangerous Creatures series and some YA contemporary romance, The Lovely Reckless and Broken Beautiful Hearts. And I'd like each of our panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to make it super tricky for you guys. We're going to go first letter in order by first letter of your first name. So that means starting with Jennifer.
Thank you, Cami. I'm Jennifer Niven, and I have written many books, but I have written 3 YA books, All the Bright Places, Holding Up the Universe, and the latest one, Breathless, which is just out.
You want to tell us a little bit about Breathless?
Sure. Breathless is it's a story about a girl whose floor has been disappeared from beneath her feet. Her whole world has changed in an instant. When she is 18, the summer before college, her parents separate and she meets a boy. She experiences a lot of first times, last times, and it's really a story about where you begin and putting that floor back beneath your feet.
Ooh. Marissa?
Hello, everyone. I'm Marissa Meyer. I am better known for fantasy and sci-fi. I wrote the Lunar Chronicles, Heartless, and the Renegades trilogy, but I'm so excited to be on my first romance panel. Contemporary romance, Instant Karma just came out, and it is the story of a girl who lives in a very quaint coastal town, and she has fantasies of being able to cast instant karma on people when they do something that disappoints or irritates her. And then one night she goes and sings karaoke with some of her friends, and she sings John Lennon's Instant Karma. And the next thing she knows, she is gifted with this ability to cast instant karma. And the one person she most wants to punish is her chemistry or her biology lab partner, Quint Erickson, who drives her absolutely batty. But every time she tries to punish him for something, it ends up backfiring on her. And so she spends a summer trying to figure out why her powers do not work on him.
Awesome. Nicola Yoon. I love seeing everyone's house, by the way. I hope your readers do too. I love seeing where everyone lives.
I do too. You guys have such great books.
Nice.
Marissa, welcome to the world of love. It's so nice here. So I am Nicola Yoon. I wrote Everything, and The Sun is Also a Star. I guess I'll talk about The Sun is Also a Star because I cannot talk about the new thing, like on pain of death. So The Sun is Also a Star is about a poetic boy named Daniel who's trying to convince like this very super practical girl named Natasha to fall in love with him over the course of 12 hours in New York City. And they only have 12 hours because she is being deported at the end of the day. And that's it.
So one thing I think about, and this is kind of like as a reader and a writer, like when you're writing a love story or even picking up a love story, like are there must-haves for you in a love story? Like in your universe of like, you as a reader and you writing. Like Nicola, what are your must-haves for like your perfect love story?
I need a lot of talking. Like I am like, what's that movie? I just needed the dialogue to be sparkly and witty. I love all those witty old black and white movies. They have to be saying something interesting. Like I love philosophy. Like I was a philosophy minor, so I need them to be talking about big things and sort of falling in love with each other's ideas, as well as themselves. So for me, it's just got to be a lot of banter. And of course there's kissing, right? But like the banter makes the kissing better. Do you feel me? So that's like Before Sunrise. That's the movie. Like I love that. Oh my God, they just walk and talk the whole time, and then by the time they finally kiss, you're just like, just kiss already, for the love of God. So that's what I need.
I totally agree. Jennifer, how about you? What are your must-haves?
I agree with Nicola. Like, I love the old black and white films. And I think for me, like, the Thin Man series, the best romantic series ever, because it's the banter and not only the banter between like Nick and Nora Charles, but it's this great respect and love. And they're a married couple, but somehow the sparks are just as big as if they were courting each other, or just falling in love. And I think that kind of respect and that kind of kindred soul feeling that you get. Of course, there have to be swoon-worthy moments too. And as you know, Nikki says, a lot of kissing is good, but there has to be something to support the kissing. It can't just be insta love. I mean, it has to come from somewhere. And I love it. Like, I love writing characters that may not typically have fallen in love with each other, but they find some common bond that they bond over, and they realize they speak each other's language in a way no one else does. So I love that kind of thing too.
Marissa, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me, 100%, everything that's been said so far. I think the number one thing that I'm looking for is slow burn. If insta love was mentioned, that can get, it just doesn't feel authentic, and it doesn't give you that growing tension and suspense over the course of the story. Like, I want it drawn out as long as possible until I am pulling my hair out and, just when is it going to happen? And the almost kisses and the growing feelings and the angst and all of that. I really want it to last as long as possible.
So, the almost kisses. I'm so with you on the almost kisses. Like, they trip, they fall, their lips just brush past each other. You're like, come on.
Yeah,
their arms
erupted.
Yes.
Or when they stare at each other and you think they're about to kiss, and then like something awkward happens, and instead they just don't.
Yes.
Like,
the cat comes into the room and interrupts, and something terrible. You're like, come on.
Or their own emotions get in the way, and that doubt creeps in, and they're like, wait, no, I can't do this. Stop it.
Oh my gosh.
I know, I love it.
You belonged in romance this whole time.
Well, you're a closet romantic.
Yeah, I would say not so closeted.
Yeah, you're not that closeted.
Yep.
So when it comes to writing craft, I always think this is, especially since I didn't start out in romance, I always wonder this, and when I would always ask other writers who are writing romances, contemporaries, anything not fantasy based. Do you start, like, when you're thinking about the book, do you start with a character, or do you start with more like a scenario or a dynamic? So like, Marissa, are you thinking like, okay, I have this idea. I want to write a book where, the girl gets instant karma? Or do you think about, did you come up with kind of a character and then find like a cool scenario? Because I feel like in fantasy, the world usually comes first. But in contemporary and in, with love stories, it seems like it could be either. You could have this character and then come up with something for him or her to be doing, or you could come up with some crazy scenario where, two people are locked in the library or trapped wherever, and what's going to happen. Especially like all of yours, instant karma. When I think about, the sun is also a star. When I think about Breathless, like, I could imagine coming up with a character or that setup first. So what is it for you? Is it the character, or is it the actual like interesting scenario? Marissa, why don't you start, since instant karma has it's secretly my fantasy scenario, getting karma.
I know, it's very vicarious. The vicarious quality that I felt in writing this book was powerful. For me, and this both for my first contemporary and also for all of my fantasies, it very much starts with a scenario or a what if question. It's interesting with instant karma because this idea of a character being able to cast instant karma on people was actually something that I tried to incorporate into my Renegades trilogy, which is about superheroes and supervillains. And in a lot of the early drafts of Renegades, there was a superhero, a male character, who had the power to cast karma on people. And I just loved that idea. But he ended up not being important to the story, and so his character got cut. And I was really sad to lose him again, because it's such a vicarious thing. Like, who doesn't see someone cutting in line at the store and wish that they could just, oh, you're, ankle splits or whatever it is. And so I just loved that idea, and it was hanging out in my head. And then eventually just started to switch over to this more contemporary story, and got this idea about this coastal town, and I wanted to incorporate environmentalism and sea animals and all of these things, and it just started to come together and develop into Prudence and her story. So for me, in this case, it was more the scenario first, and then came to characters. But I'll be curious to see if as I continue into contemporaries, if that changes. I don't really know. I'm curious to hear what everyone else has to say.
So magically, Leah, we have
Leah! Yay!
So Leah, before we keep going, will you introduce yourself and tell us about your book? I was about to say your latest book, but your debut book, your debut novel.
Yeah, for sure. So let me just say before I start that I can hear all of you, but I can't see anybody. So if you're like giving me like a gesture of some sort, like Leah, cut it off, just say Leah, cut it off. So yeah, my debut novel is called You Should See Me in a Crown. It's about a girl named Liz Lighty whose main goal is to get out of her small. Thank you. Once again, I can't see if y'all are reacting to what I'm saying, so like appreciate that actually.
We are.
We're smiling.
All around.
Her main goal is to get out of her small and small-minded Midwestern hometown and go to college, but those plans fall through when her financial aid falls through and she needs to run for prom queen for the scholarship that's attached to the crown. That would be difficult enough for a wallflower like Liz, but it's made even more difficult when she starts to fall for her competition.
Woo! And just to catch you up, we are, what I asked was from a writing craft perspective. Do you come up with your character first? And I know you have another book that's going to be coming out in the future. So do you come up with the character first, or do you come up with the kind of like an interesting scenario or setup, and then, kind of find the character that best fits that?
Yeah, for me, it's story first. So every plot is just like a little kernel of a nugget of a seed of a modicum of an idea that I just can't seem to get away from. So with You Should See Me in a Crown, it emerged really, Liz as a main character emerged really organically because she was the only person who I could imagine leading us through this world. And it also helped that me and Liz are very similar in a lot of ways. Surprise, surprise, Leah, Liz. And so her character just sort of like burst forth on the page after I knew what the story was going to be about and what I wanted to accomplish with it. But my second novel is a little different. I'm like very into music festivals, and there's a certain type of like communal joy and love, but also this fraught element to being in spaces like that, especially now. As we all know, being in public spaces also comes with a certain element of danger. And so I wanted to write about that and what it would look like to fall in love in a space like that. And so always story first, and then the character comes really, usually pretty easily.
Jennifer, how about you? Do you come up with your scenario or your character first?
I am like Leah in that I come up with a story first, and I usually have a general idea of the story, and then it's almost like they arrive simultaneously in a way. I mean, the story is maybe just a hair before the characters, and then the characters arrive, and then I tend to really do a lot of work ahead of time, ahead of actual, pen to page. In terms of character studying, character development, I have to know my characters inside and out before I write anything. And then I can go back to the story idea, the original story idea I had, and kind of storyboard it as much as you can do that in fiction. But yeah, the characters, story starts, but then the characters are really the heart of it for me.
Nicola, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say mine is mostly emotion first, right? So it's usually there's something wrong with me generally, like if I'm trying to work through, there's some question that I have, like for everything. I was a nervous mom And so that's the heart of that story, and that's what begins it. And then, like with that book, I heard the first line first. With The Sun Is Also a Star, I had the idea of those interstitials, like, all the things that push people together, because I wanted to talk about how the world is really connected, and even though we sometimes think we're not connected. And with the new book, it's absolutely all emotion. It's like one big, just burning question that I have, which is like, is love worth everything? Like, is love worth all the trouble we go through for it? And I don't know. So yeah, to me, it starts with emotion, and then everything else sort of starts like glomming together like this big ball. But it's usually a
I
big
like the
question.
idea of a glom, a romance.
It's
The
so.
craft term.
I mean, writing is so mysterious. I mean, I think you guys all feel this, right? I mean, it's just like I will go back and look at something and go, I wrote that? Was I drunk? Was I sleeping? I don't know. Like, and you can never write the old book again. Like, I am not the person who could write that first book again because I'm different now. It's such a mystical process, I think.
It really is. And who knows where it all comes from, too.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking was, these being able to tap into these, because all your books are about emotion. So you really do have to be, I always said before I wrote contemporary that I knew contemporary would be harder because there's no magic, like the magic for me is easy. And then when I was like, but if you have to write about real things, there's no creatures, there's no paranormal elements. It's like you just have the people. And so I know it's like, to me, that's why I'm really blown away whenever I read a love story that's just like knocks me off my feet, because I'm like, how did they do this so perfectly? And one of the things that I wonder is like, do you feel like you as a writer and possibly other writers you admire in the YA love story space, regardless of what type of love story, do you feel like you have some kind of like really, I don't know, almost like a magical ability to tap into, remember how you felt back then as a teen? Because all of your books ring very true. It doesn't sound like adult women writing teenagers, or adult people writing teenagers, which is a peeve of mine. I don't like it when it sounds like a 30-year-old is writing a 17-year-old. So like, what is the secret? Like, do you transport yourselves back? Do you have tricks? Like, how do you tap into those emotions? Because you have to get them on the page. How about
I think
jump in? Anyone?
I mean,
I'll take it.
Right, Leah, like
You know what? I can't see those little things when people are like, so just like, I guess I'll do it. So I think like with You Should See Me in a Crown, I wish that I had like a go-to trick that like got me closer to the teen psyche, or like got me closer to what an actual teen's voice sounds like. Like, I'm a creative writing professor, and so I teach a lot of like 18, 19-year-olds, but even that has its shortcomings and pitfalls because they're technically adults, even though they're still teenagers. But I was really fortunate, I guess, if you couldn't call it that, that when I was writing Liz's journey through first love, like I was very much still coming into my own queerness. And so everything at that time felt so big to me. And so, it's like the stakes never felt higher in my life. And so when I started to fall in love with a woman for the first time, it was like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Like, this is everything terrible and great at the same time. And I think that's very much how it feels to be a teenager. Everything feels terrible and great at the same time.
Absolutely. Where everyone's nodding at you. We're like, yes.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. We're not. We all get
Everything
it.
feels terrible and great is a fantastic line, and I feel like it's the title of maybe your third book, Leah.
Right.
Terrible.
I'm like writing it down as we speak.
Great summation of it.
So you genuinely were like experiencing the first, like, like how about in Marissa, like for you, how do you, I mean, like I know you're married, you have children, like you obviously didn't just fall in love last week. So how do you tap into that? And how do you get such an authentic voice, where, I mean, these are really sound like teens. in all of your, I mean, not just these books, all of the books all of you have written, I feel like I hear teenagers.
Yeah, it is interesting. Being married, I think in some ways helps, because as a teenager, I was very much a late bloomer, and I was a romantic, and I wanted love so badly. I wanted to meet my soulmate. I wanted to have that first kiss. And for me, it did not happen for quite a while. And I just remember that burning desire to meet somebody who was going to love and cherish me. And now that I'm, very happily married and have been for almost 10 years, I can still think back to teenage Marissa, and I want to send her a message and be like, it's going to be okay. You're going to meet a great guy. Life's going to be awesome. And so I almost feel like in writing my teen characters, I can fill them with those same desires and that same wanting and yearning, and also be able to give them the happy ending that I think that they deserve and that young Marissa wanted so badly. So I think it kind of plays together somewhat.
I love that. Jennifer, how about you?
I mean, I was very preoccupied with love from a very early age. So my first boyfriend I had when I was 2, and
Two. You said 2. Okay.
His name was Billy Burt, and he would we dated for about 4 years, and he would come riding down on his big wheel and wait for me to wake up, and it would usually he'd have to wait for 4 hours because I was a late sleeper. So I loved love from an early age. So also I think that that's a long way of saying I just remember every heartache. I remember every unrequited feeling. I remember every rush of feeling and excitement if someone asked me out who I'd been dying to ask, for. And I remember all of that. And it's just so embedded in there. I think part of it helps that I'm still best friends with my best friend from high school, and we can be talking about, COVID or the election. And then he can be like, can you believe when we went to Teresa's party and John Brady was off that thing? And then he was like, hey, McJunkin, which is my actual last name. Niven's my middle name. But anyway, it's we can go back there in a flash. So I think that helps. But my mom always believed, and she was also a writer, and she just believed as a person, as a writer, if you can stay in touch with that child self, that young self, that's magic. And that's where so much of it comes from. I mean, in life and also on the page. And so I think, I've been able to do that. And then while I wrote Breathless, I was fortunate to meet my now husband and fall in love and get to write our adventures into the book. So that certainly helped too.
Oh, I love that. How about you,
Nicola? You asked whether or not there's a trick to it. And the thing that I always do is there's a lot of questions in my books, right? So the kids are usually sort of asking big questions, and that's because I'm like that. So I'm a philosophy nerd. So I'm always I'm the obnoxious person. That's but what does it really mean? Really, truly? And I'm terrible to have at a dinner party, honestly. So I just make the kids ask questions, right? So what they're actually falling in love with is themselves, right? They're falling in love with how they see the world and how they're learning to see the world and ideas. So that's usually my trick, is that, there is the other person that they are swooning over and kissing, but they're starting to see that they have ideas about the world, and that they're pretty cool too, and learning to stand up for themselves. So it kind of is, a way of just letting the characters fall in love with themselves. And then, I adore my husband. I fall in love with him every day. And I know I'm cheesy and obnoxious, but I am absolutely, completely in love with him. And it's easy to write swoony kisses because I get swoony kisses all the time.
Yeah, and I think what Jennifer was saying too about remembering the heartbreaks, it's you can channel those sad feelings from the sadder moments, that we all remember, when you need to as well. So Leah, before you came, there was lots of talk about romantic banter and amazing black and white romance movies and all of that. So I am wondering if you have any go-to, like, for example, a lot of people have playlists, like they listen to music or they listen to music before, during, the kind of like, you know, sparks things for them. It's like your on switch. Like, do you have any go-to romance or books that have books or movies or TV that have love in them? Like, not just music. Like, a lot of people recently, because of the pandemic, have been talking about, like, like kind of like your comfort list, like, your feel good things. Do you have any, like, I'm gonna get myself like in, romance writing mode kind of music, or just songs, TV, books? Because those of us who really want to like write love stories want to take notes and immediately start reading and watching everything that you are. How
You know
about like,
what?
yeah,
Say
go ahead.
less. This is my favorite thing to talk about. Okay. So absolutely, I have my go-tos, and one of the first like movies that I return to if I'm feeling like I need some inspiration about like what it feels like to be in high school and have everything feel impossibly big, is The Duff with Mae Whitman and Robbie Amell, which is based on a book of the same name. So funny, so smart. I recommend everybody watch it if you haven't already. Also, Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, book and movie, both incredible. I watch Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist every time I feel stuck, and also anytime, because I lived in New York up until like a month ago, and so anytime I would go out for a night in the city, I would like come back home after not falling in love, like, and watch Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist and be like, you know what, it's okay. Next time we're gonna have an all night adventure in the city, and it's gonna end in the biggest love story of my life. But like, not to be too corny, because it's weird that Nicola Yoon is like in this call, but like The Sun Is Also a Star is a huge inspiration to me and has been for a really long time. And so
Oh, you are sweet. I'm
whenever
blowing you kisses.
oh,
You
thank you,
can't see,
thank
but
you,
I'm
I'm
totally blowing you
accepting
kisses.
it. Just when we were talking about like figuring out authentic character voice, I think what happens a lot of times is, even when I'm not around teenagers, I'm reading other people that I think are writing teenagers so well that I feel like that too is informing the work that I'm doing. And so I'm just like really fortunate that we're in a moment where there's so many more black girls getting happy endings and stories, and queer people getting happy endings and stories, that like I can go to the shelf and pluck, Cinderella is Dead, or, Sun Is Also a Star, or The Odd One Out by Nick Stone. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many options. And so any of those I highly recommend. And I just watched season 4 of The Good Place. Chef's kiss. If you want your whole life, just like you want to see it, like everything fall apart, your emotions, your sanity, everything, it'll do that for you. And then it'll piece you back together at the end. Oh, I love to see it.
I haven't gotten to season 4 yet, so now I'm like feeling more excited. Like, I have
Oh,
something
yeah.
serious to look forward to.
It's good. I watched it in one sitting. So if that gives you any indication.
Awesome. Jennifer, how about you? Do you have any
Oh my
go-tos, or your inspiration?
I think that I mean, this is going to sound very weird, but like, okay, Cami and I are huge Supernatural fans,
Yes, we are.
and yes, and there are so many swoony things that I love. Like, I love the original Thin Man series, and I love a lot of the black and white movies, because I feel like no one did romance like smart, clever, swoony romance like they did. And so those, I mean, I could give you a list of those that I just absolutely love and I go back to all the time. But one of the things that I love about Supernatural is the different kind of love story, the love story between the brothers. And I think that, for me, there's so many kinds of love stories that I love to watch and read. And in Breathless, one of the love stories is between Claude and her best friend Saz, and just that friendship and the growth of that friendship, and just the challenges that they're facing at this particular time in their life. And I just, one thing that has kept me, besides how cute they are, for 15 seasons for this show, is just this beautiful love story between the brothers, and that kind of thing. And whether it is, I'm trying to think of like something other than a black and white movie that has done that kind of justice to a romantic love story, but that kind of, that that for me can be inspiration because it shows the depth of feeling, and it's not always perfect, but then there are these, like, you fight for this person and you are there for this person, you have that person's back, and there's just something very beautiful about that.
And sometimes the first person we fall in love with is our best friend. You know,
Yeah.
like the love we have with a best friend is sometimes how you kind of know what it feels like when you have that spark and you meet the person who was meant to be, I always say, like, your sister from another mom, or like just your soulmate. So
That kind of
Nicola, how about Nicola, how about you?
Oh yeah. So any of the talkies, right? So anyone where they're just mostly talking and then they're kissing. So this controversial opinion, I love Love Actually. I don't care what anyone says. I want to
I
talk about
love
it.
Love Actually.
Absolutely.
There is a whole world of people who hate this movie, and I don't understand that. Listen,
Can't relate.
oh, Marissa, do you hate it? You do. I knew
love
it. There would be someone on this call.
I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, when the
Marissa.
little boy goes to get her in the airport.
I mean, dead, DED on the floor every time. So like Before Sunrise, Princess Bride. Oh, Princess Bride, come on, man! Like if I will watch that movie every single time. I've read the book 50 billion times. Anything where they're just mostly talking a lot. Always gets me every single time. Oh, I have a recommendation: Destination Wedding with Keanu Reeves and oh God, what's her name? Leah. I can see that you know.
Winona Ryder.
Thank you.
Is that not her? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it is. This movie is hilarious, you guys. And it's so like we're all writers. Watch the movie because there's a writing technique in here that's so brilliant. Like I'm just like, how did they pull this off? And it's
Is this
hilarious.
a new movie or an old one?
It's maybe like a year or two
Oh, okay.
old. And it's just banter, and they're so funny. They're like really curmudgeonly people falling in love with each other. They're so grumpy, but hilariously grumpy. And Keanu Reeves is a national treasure. I mean, we know this, right? So it's
And
it's
very,
glorious.
very handsome also,
He's so good looking. It's unbelievable.
We are two very good looking people, I will say.
Yes,
So that
they
is
are.
a good pair for a movie. How about you, Marissa?
Yeah, so I will add to the Nicola Love Fest. The Sun is Also a Star was huge for me when I was writing Instant Karma, because I just loved how the universe was like its own character almost, like, and it had ideas of its own, and I loved that, and I'm not ashamed to say that I totally borrowed that idea. So it was as far as movies and like favorite romance movies, some of my comfort ones that I go to are Pride and Prejudice, the Keira Knightley one. I could watch that a million times. I swoon every time. So that's a really big one for me. And then when I was in college, my roommate and I both had our hearts broken at like the same time. And the movie that had just come out was Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. And I feel like it was totally underappreciated as chick flicks go. We binge watched that movie again and again, and Topher Grace in it is so stinking nerdy and adorable. And the way that he just loves this girl is like what everyone thinks of. And so it filled us back up and gave us hope when we needed it. And so to this day, that is one of my go-tos if I just need a really romantic pick-me-up. Win a Date with Tad Hamilton is
I
it.
love that
I
movie.
really remember that one.
Also, I forgot, have you all seen The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix?
Yes.
Okay, that's a beautiful love story. Like the love story in that is just, I cried and cried. And I came to it because I loved like Haunting of Hill House, and I love that kind of creepy haunted house stuff. But it was so lovely. It was so lovely.
It was, and it was also, I love watching anyone fall in love, but it was also just such a beautiful queer love story of like and they were, I don't know, they were like sexy and pretty and like smart. They were both
And
like
they
the
were
full package.
the way they cared for each other. It was just like it was just beautiful.
I know. I feel like actually I watched that more as a romance than an actual like creepy movie.
Me too.
I was
And
mostly just waiting for them to get together.
yeah.
Totally. So we have a bunch of reader questions that people submitted, and I have this magical like document that they appear in. So I'm going to read some of these, and you can let me know if if you feel like super compelled that one is for you. Um, some of them I feel pretty proud of us because it seems like we answered already. Um, how do you make this is I feel like for any genre, but like how do you make your readers care about your characters? Is there, I mean, this is like we're talking about craft. Is there a trick or a tip or a magic, like what's your magic wand to make sure your readers are really going to care about your main characters?
For me, I mean, just to jump in if it's okay, but for me, I put so much of myself in there, but and so much of, Nicola was talking about emotion, like just so much of my emotion, whether it's my experiences I've been through, it's loss I've been through, grief, it's just love, it's all of it goes in there. And I think that, if you're writing characters or a story and you want your readers to feel certain ways when they read them, you need to feel all those emotions too. And you need to be willing to put those emotions on page. And so for me, it's, even if it's not a person who's exactly based on me, I mean, there are always pieces of me in my characters, and they're pieces of the people I love. They're pieces of people I know. And so all of that to me makes them feel so real, like they breathe, actually breathe and are walking around. And I think that, that emotion and putting that, infusing your characters with yourself and with real people, I think that really, really helps to make them come to life.
Totally.
You kind of come to care for the characters so strongly as well. And I know for me, it doesn't always happen right away. Sometimes it doesn't happen until maybe the third or fourth draft that I start to feel like, okay, I really get this person now. But there does come a point in writing every book where I feel like I care so much about the characters and I want them to have a happy ending and I want everything to turn out okay. And when it gets to that point, then I feel like, okay, I'm on to something. And then you just hope that the readers will be feeling that as well.
Totally.
I mean, your characters have to care about something, right? Like we care because they care. I mean, I think that's the trick. Like they have to want and they have to care, and then you are sucked in.
So this is interesting because Nicola kind of touched on this instead of Jennifer earlier. But are any of your love interests in your novels like directly related to a spouse, someone you love? Like I know this is true, but like Jennifer said, her new one is very inspired by her like meeting her husband. Like, is that the case for anybody else?
It was
No.
definitely the case for All the Bright Places too. I mean, All the Bright Places came from a boy I loved and lost to suicide. And, I knew him a long time ago, but, and I always wanted to write about him, but I didn't know if I could. And so he came from that. But now, when I think about Finch in All the Right Places, I think about Finch. I don't think about the boy who inspired him. It's like the characters do become their own people and they become real to you. As Marissa was saying, they're like, the more you get to know them, they're almost like your family. And so, and then obviously the new one, I had actually created Jeremiah Crew before I met my husband, Justin Conway, same initials. There were a lot of really eerie similarities, and some of my friends think I conjured him, which maybe I did. But I had actually created his character before I met Justin, and I actually was just starting the writing when I met him, and it was eerie. It was really eerie. So he's Jeremiah, but Jeremiah was kind of there first.
Interesting. How about you, Leah? Like, did you having a romance, like, influence any of the characters at all? Or was it just kind of like she was you? Like,
It definitely influenced the feelings. I mean, those are all very real. But the person who she's like falling in love with over the course of the book is very different than anybody I've ever been in love with. Of which there have been many people who I have fallen in love with, and so because that's kind of my default setting. So yeah, no, I think the love interest in You Should See Me in a Crown is an amalgamation of all the coolest girls I've ever known. Like, who would I have wanted to fall in love with if I was a 16-year-old queer girl in Nowheresville, Indiana? Well, somebody who was very self-assured, somebody who skateboarded, somebody who drove a Jeep and listened to all the coolest music. Like, and I was like, let's just throw all those elements at the wall and see what sticks. And then my editor was like, Leah, you gotta
Yep.
give her a flaw. You gotta do something. And I was like, all right, we'll make her a little awkward. I don't know. And that was that was what I did.
Okay, we only have 2 minutes, it's telling me. So I want to go around quickly, like 30 seconds, like, and give me your best writing tip, like your favorite writing tip. If you could just tell all of your readers, viewers, fans, one thing that they should do. Nicola, how about you?
Let your freak flag fly. Let it fly. Wave that flag. We care about all the weird stuff about you. Like, that's why
Marissa, how about
only you
you?
can write that book.
Marissa, how about you?
Don't save the best for later. If you have something that you want to write and you're excited and passionate about it now, then do it now.
Awesome. Jennifer?
I would say 2 things. Write the story you want to read. And also remember that you are the only you there is in the entire world, which is extraordinary. And that means only you can write the story you can write.
Totally true. Leah?
Yeah, finish the draft. Finish it. Don't sit around talking about, oh, I'm going to lament with this thing for 10 years. No, stop lamenting with it. Finish the draft. It cannot get better until it's done. So go write it right now, actually. Log off.
Literally took mine. Leah took mine. It's finished. There's no, you can't sell a whole bunch of like chapter ones. You've got to finish.
Yep.
And just so everyone knows, if you go to YALLWrite.org, there's links. Blue Bicycle Books is selling all of our books, the books of all of the other people at YALLWrite. And you can also, just, and also this is cool too. These are all kind of being taped, and later on, we're going to put up links so you'll be able to like rewatch these, and Leah, you can watch it and see how cute you look, and
Oh, thank
how
you.
it looks. It literally looks like you'll never know that you can't see us. So thank you guys. Thank you all so much, you guys, you ladies, and all of us, viewers, everybody. Thank you for coming, and happy YALLWrite. And I'm going to go watch more panels.
Bye. Thanks you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Cammy.
you.
Bye.